So on our properties foldable, we have the additive identity, the multiplicative identity, additive inverse, and multiplicative inverse. Some of the classes got as far as the commutative property, but I don't think everybody did, so that's where I'm going to start. So I have the commutative property of addition and multiplication. I put it on the same tab, and then I just cut my little tab in kind of a little zigzaggy. The commutative property says, and if we open up our foldable, that I can change the order of addition or multiplication. So then we want to give examples. Now remember that my tab is cut in half, the top one being addition. So I have changing the order of addition. A plus the quantity B plus C equals the quantity B plus C plus A. That's my algebraic example. And then I gave some numeric examples. 3 plus 4 equals 4 plus 3, and y plus 5 equals 5 plus y. For the commutative property of multiplication, remember I can change the order, and then my examples, A times the quantity BC equals BC times A. So algebraic example, and then number examples, I said 4x equals x times 4, and 3ab equals 3ba. Remember, we can change the order. So that's the commutative property of addition and multiplication. And then today you learned about the associative property. The associative property lets you remember change the grouping or move your but. Remember we said that the parentheses kind of looks like a but. So it lets us move the parentheses or change the grouping, and I put move your but. So for addition, I have A plus the quantity or grouping, B plus C, and now I'm going to change the grouping, equals the grouping A plus B plus C. Remember, all I'm doing is moving the parentheses. So those are my examples for that. Then we learned the distributive property. The distributive property is just when I multiply each term by the numbers on the outside of the parenthesis to distribute the value. And remember that the distributive property eliminates parentheses. That's the whole purpose of that, is to get rid of a parenthesis. My examples for my distributive property are A times the quantity B plus C equals AB plus AC. And then I went ahead and did some algebraic and numeric examples. 4x times the quantity 3 minus z equals 12x minus 4xz, and so forth. Your examples, remember, don't need to be as elaborate, and they don't need to be as exact like mine. I would prefer that you actually choose your own examples. The last property, or the last two properties, are the multiplicative property of 0 and the multiplicative property of -1. So again, I put the multiplicative property, and then I cut my little tab in half and just wrote the word 0, and I put a -1. And if you remember, what they say is that for the multiplicative property of 0, any number multiplied by 0 is 0. So those are my examples. And for the multiplicative property of -1, it states that any number multiplied by -1 is its opposite. Any number multiplied by -1 is its opposite. So I have A times the quantity of -1 equals -A, or the opposite of A. So remember, that works the same whether we start with a positive number or not. So I have 1/4 times -1 equals -4. But I also have -5 times -1, that's equals 5, because the opposite of a -5 is a positive. So the properties that you need to add to your foldable are the commutative property, if you don't have that already, the associative property, the distributive property, and the multiplicative property of 0 and -1. Now, I'm not going to leave the scissors and all of that stuff out. I mean, I'll leave them on the table, but you don't have to get up and move around the room and do that. If you can at least just write the properties down, give the definition and the examples, we can finish cutting the little flaps and all that good stuff on Monday. And I think Kendra was taking her NWEA when we did this, so I actually have a couple of examples or a couple of extra ones in the Period 5 and Period 7 folder that she can help herself to. Thanks and good luck.